Hi, it's Dennis Daly. There aren't many small-town YMCAs left. My hometown in Indiana has one, and it's still going gangbusters. The driving force behind that Y's expansion, let's say back in the 1970s, and a man who has revolutionized the Y in Nashville and would later go on to Houston, is Clark Baker, an old buddy of mine. We visited the brand new facility in Franklin, just south of Nashville, a facility put together from scratch. I asked Clark what it was like to start a brand new YMCA in brand new territory.
Franklin, Tennessee is kind of America, USA today. It's families. The average person living here has 3.5 kids, a dog, a Volvo, a mortgage payment, working real hard. And this was a town that kept calling us and saying they want a Y. They want a quality of life. They want something that they can't get other places. And the YMCA, which is the Young Men's Christian Association, was something that they asked for. And we delivered. It was an effort by this community, by the leaders of this city, by benefactors and donors who said, yes, we can. And here we are.
You know, it's such an amazing complex. I know that there are so many different kinds of Ys around the country. In some of the older cities in the U.S., through no fault of the YMCAs, they're in pretty crumbling structures. And yet there are some really spick and span modern facilities. From what I've seen here in Nashville, you're in a pretty envious position because even though you have a lot of different facilities, the oldest is not all that old structurally.
Well, you know, the YMCA's mission is to help people grow in spirit, mind, and body. And the South was relatively uninhabited, if you will, for many, many years. And the folks in the Northeast and the West built the old hotels so the guys could come in from the farm and work in the Industrial Revolution and have places to stay that were safe and healthy, and had the old dorm moms who watched you come in at night and make sure that you went to prayers every morning. And so now the South is growing. I think the southern states have kind of found themselves. And you have the old YMCAs in the Northeast and other parts of the country that certainly were and are relevant to their times. What you do have are some buildings that were built around the turn of the century, and even marble and brass and health clubs and old pools get old. We're blessed by, I guess because we weren't much, we are now. And YMCAs are whatever they are to be for their community. And in the old days, we were camping, swimming, healthy lifestyles, and a place to stay, a cheap, safe place to stay. Well, we don't have many hotels these days. We were, before Holiday Inn, the largest hotelier in the world.
Wow.
So today, and as you come around, we did a survey in Franklin. They said they wanted an outdoor pool, an indoor pool, gymnasium, a safe place to walk, a place for kids. They wanted camping. They wanted youth fitness. They wanted a wellness center. Child care is a big thing, and babysitting. And we built that for the people of Franklin, Tennessee. We were brought to this country in 1851. Our first gym was in Boston, Massachusetts, and we had a wonderful old building, which we're still on that site, I think. And in those days, we were talking healthy lifestyle, we were talking moderation, we were talking spirit, mind, and body, the old equilateral triangle that talks about being a whole person. We talked about Scripture. John 17:21 says that we may be all one, Father, as we are in you, which means that we want to bring you to from a Christian heritage. Now, I always tell people, Dennis, that we are not an organization of Christians. We are a Christian organization. And as we look around today, there are folks, who do things that we do. We did invent basketball. We did invent volleyball. When I tell people we're the oldest, who's the oldest swimming instructor in the world? It's not Aunt Mabel. It's the YMCA. When we talk about camping, 105 years ago, we developed resident camping. So the YMCA has been there. One of our little sayings is, we're with you for a lifetime. Where can you go as a 6-week-old in child care or in Mom and Tot Swim, and we've got 88-year-olds still playing handball, which is kind of a crusty old game. So the old With You for a Lifetime is still relevant, and we think there's room for lots of folks. We are a membership organization, and that's what I think makes us very unique.
Let me get into, if I can again for a second, the aspect of Christian in the name. I think a lot of people, in my dealings, and in a way I'm kind of cheating because, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, you and I, in high school, got involved in the Y. Our activities in high school Red Cross were in a YMCA building. But that family values aspect, the Christian heritage of it, how do you keep that going in a world that's become extremely secular and a country which has a very diverse number of religions?
Well, we're standing right now in front of the mission statement, which is in front of our Bible, which says a worldwide fellowship united by a common loyalty to Jesus Christ for the purpose of helping persons grow in spirit, mind, and body. Now, that's about as apple pie motherhood as you can get. I always say there are some people who spend 90% of their time telling you how Christian they are and 10% doing it. We like to say that we're telling you about 7% and 93% living it with role models, with staff who are mentors and relationships that are with you for a lifetime. We're not going to tell you that everybody who comes in here is a Christian or will be. We're telling you that the Judeo-Christian heritage, which is our roots, is what we're about. We were founded in London, England, by a group of people who wanted to find some alternatives to the wicked ways of downtown London. I know you've been to England, and although what they call wicked in those days is kind of a walking down the street today, but we're an alternative. We are a family place. 76% of the membership in this YMCA is family. Mom and dad and 3 kids can come, spend a day, spend a lot of time with us, giving you happiness, friendships, and a wholesome, happy friendship place to be.
You still using that phrase, fun, fitness, and fellowship? I remember that in some of the advertising years ago.
Yeah, that's one of the old ones, fun, fitness, and fellowship. Got to remember that we were doing basketball before it was an NBA sport.
Before the Dream Team, yeah.
The Dream Team hadn't even dreamed it yet. What we didn't do, of course, was put some kind of a half a penny a point or something. We're still a not-for-profit community service organization. We are owned and operated by the YMCA of Nashville and Middle Tennessee. Our board are local people. They are donors. They are friends. They are folks who built this place. There are folks who, some of them are 3rd and 4th generation members of our board. So it's kind of fun to watch them talk about great-grandpa who built the old downtown Y in 1910.
Clark, you have 2 children, one of whom is in college, the other getting ready to graduate from high school. As an administrator, you still spend a lot of time with young people, and we haven't even gotten into the work the Y does in the inner city, which I think a lot of people don't know about. When you and I were in high school, by and large, people still had 2 parents at home. Quite often the mother didn't work, and in my case, my dad didn't want my mom to work. How he made enough money on his own to survive, I don't know. What do you hear from kids? What kind of problems do they share with your staff that maybe we didn't even think about 30 years ago?
Well, first of all, an interesting part of YMCA staff is that we're neutral. We're not in the school system. We're not a church person. We probably know more about your life, your family's life, your interpersonal relations than you ever want to know. We once said that we were hiring a counselor to work at this Y, and one little youngster said, well, that'll save my mom a lot of money because we won't have to pay for the counseling we're now getting. And so I always tell our staff with child care, 5,000 kids a day, with day camp, 2,500, 3,000 kids a day, with our high school programs, we're raising a generation of children. 1 out of 3 kids in our school-age child care, we call it Fund Company, are on financial assistance. These are primarily single moms working hard at a job that doesn't pay a lot and needs child care, needs to make sure that when she goes to work at whatever fast food place or whatever grocery store at whatever hour, with busing and with that opportunity of what time do I get home. We provide safe, affordable, very caring caregivers. Dennis, we have a whole generation of kids raising themselves, getting to school on their own, finding out how to maneuver through the discovery road that's not been discovered. So we hear that some of our staff are role models for the kids. In this day and age, we need happy, caring, fun-loving. Someone said the other day that they wanted a low-maintenance person. And I said, well, what's a low-maintenance person? They said, that's someone who goes to work, loves their work, goes home, doesn't have their paycheck garnished, it doesn't have a criminal record, doesn't have somebody trying to take their car away from them. But we're working with kids today in, I guess, what's the word, dysfunctional? Is that a new word? Mm-hmm. We didn't know what dysfunctional was. That just meant that you didn't have your bicycle on time. But interesting time to raise a family, interesting time to be here in raising our next generation.
Well, I think that would be scary. I mean, I really think inherent, if we can leave people listening to this with any thought, is the fact that the YMCA is a much more complex organization than a lot of people think. And I'm sure there are people who listen to this, who are listening, who still think of the Y as being a gymnasium.
Well, my answer to that is the YMCA is whatever it was to you. If you learn to swim at the Y, it's the swimming pool. If you learn to go to camp, we were your first camping experience. If you stayed in our dormitory, we were your home away from home. If you went to our high school model United Nations or model government, you knew us in a high school club setting, high Y, tri-high Y, gray Y. Gray Y was grammar school YMCA. Those kind of things are, somebody once said to me, I said, well, you ever had a Y experience? They said, no, we never have been a member of the Y. I said, where'd you play youth sports? They said, well, I was a Gray Y member. I said, well, Gray Y was the grammar school YMCA, where you had the clubs at school, you paid $10 a week, you had a leader and you took dues and you had a little scripture and prayer. But it's to whatever it was to you. And the old thing about describing an elephant from a blind man, and it was whatever you grabbed onto. But the Y has been there and is there. 2,000 YMCAs around the country. We're open. We have 15 YMCAs in Nashville. We're open 100 hours per week. We're open at 5 in the morning. We close at 9 or 10 at night. We're open after church on Sunday, but 7 days a week. And so I always say, if you can't find time to come, then you're just not working very hard at your schedule.
My special guest and our host is Clark Baker, a longtime friend of mine. We went to grade school and high school together, went our separate ways, and now kind of a reunion in Nashville. He is the executive director of all the YMCAs in Central Tennessee, and he's been telling us how many things the Y, not just there, but all over the nation, is involved in. I asked him for some specific numbers and projects of the kinds of activities he oversees in the Nashville area.
Great question. We're just about 35 miles from Spring Hill, Tennessee. I think many of you know Spring Hill is where Saturn moved, where General Motors moved their prototypical company, which is doing very, very well. And many people from that company moved in from the north. And they came, and we'd get about 8 or 9 phone calls a day saying, "Where's the Y? Is the Y coming here? Where is the building?" We have kids. We all grew up in the Y. So cities like Franklin, I think I'm close to this number, has about a year and a half ago have more than 50% who came from outside of Tennessee than those who grew up here. So all of a sudden you get folks from the north, the northeast, the Midwest moving to what's a lovely place to live and saying, where's the Y? Where do we go for fun, fitness, and fellowship, to quote your point? So the YMCA came here in response to that growth. Now, we have 15 YMCAs. Those are 15 buildings. They're relatively well located. We have good market penetration. We serve 150,000 people a year. That's about 15% of our service area. Now, let's not just say, isn't that great, or so what? The other answer is that we are in 268 other program locations. These are schools, these are neighborhood centers, these are community centers, these are backyard pools, these are churches. We're in 105 schools providing school-age childcare, the affordable alternative to letting your kid be a latchkey child. We teach swimming throughout the area. When you're America's oldest swimming instructor, you shouldn't give that license up. So we teach swimming in all kinds of neighborhoods and neighborhood pools and community centers, and we're proud to do it. So we are very decentralized. That's the other word. We bring the program to the people. We have a unit called Urban Services. They don't fix potholes or manhole covers. Urban Services is what we call our Y without walls. We have vans. We work in the neighborhoods. We're in 9 of Nashville's housing projects, 9 of 13 of Nashville's housing projects. Those in the old days were called housing developments or inner city housing. I think we call them housing developments now. Doesn't that sound nice? But it's where we put a lot of people who couldn't afford neighborhoods together, and that was kind of not the smartest thing to do. But today, here we are, Lord, and we're doing the best we can for those kids. And the other part, Dennis, of our program is that we're working very, very hard in partnerships. Collaboration with schools. People say, well, can you do it all? Who can do it all? Not any one of us, not the Salvation Army, not the Y, not the school system, not the churches. It takes, a whole village to raise a child? And we are working with that village. And that village today is diverse, it's complex, it's a tough life out there. And our job is to make the child, to make the family, have a unique experience with us.
In the average YMCA, what part of the income comes from membership, and where does the rest of the money have to come from?
Well, interesting question. It would vary city to city. Nationally, about 30 to 32% of our revenue would come from membership. A lot comes from contributions, where people want to buy into a program, want to be a sponsor, want to be a partner. We've got a local newspaper here, for example, that helps us sponsor Compute and Shoot. Kind of quaint, isn't it? Compute and Shoot. We do computer skills on Saturday, and we play ball 2 days a week. And the objective is we can always get them to play ball, but we can't always get them to want to come for computers. So we do a little program with them, and their city editor is one of our many volunteers, along with 18 of his staff writers in this nationally recognized newspaper that work with the kids, and they're mentors to these kids. So I guess membership is a big piece. United Way and contributions are a piece. Fees for service. We got 18,000 kids playing sports. Soccer and basketball and baseball and t-ball and all kinds of variations, swim teams, all of these kind of team sports. That's a big piece of our work. We're also doing values clarification. We don't just take the kid and see who can beat up the other kid and win the goal. We're trying to teach respect and responsibility and honesty and caring. Those are the 4 core values. So program fees, membership fees, and contributions are how we derive our revenue. And we are not for profit. And somebody said, how do you know that? And I said, look at our balance sheet. We prove it every year. We deny no one service due to lack of ability to pay. We have sliding fee scales in all of our programs. We try to work with the person who believes in our purpose and the person or the family with which we can help their quality of life.
What should a parent do who really doesn't have the money? I mean, do you, and I'm sure if the answer is yes, it's done quietly, you don't publicize it, do most Ys make an accommodation for people who really deserve to be there but can't afford it?
Well, it's a local decision, and most YMCAs that I'm aware of do have, we call them scholarships, or we call them financial assistance. Dennis, there's a gal in our hometown named Beulah Trousdale, and Miss Beulah lived on the corner of Walnut and 10th Street. And back in 1952, Miss Beulah gave me a $6 annual membership to the YMCA. Now, I don't know if she was trying to keep me out of her flower bed, out of her backyard, or just give me a chance to enrich my life, but Miss Beulah today, and I think you saw it, I have a picture of her that I treasure because Miss Beulah was a partner. She had no children, she never married, but she believed in the YMCA and she believed in helping me get a head start. I visited her right on to her final days in the nursing home. She had a 1953 Buick with a Dynaflow transmission, I'll never forget. And Miss Beulah and her friends kind of latched on to me as a kid.
After you and I were out of high school, in that town of 10,000 in southern Indiana, we still lived back there. I hadn't moved away, you hadn't moved away. It was 1973. At the time, the Y had a fair to Midland gymnasium, and the bulk of it was in a house, was it not, that had just been built onto? The idea came up that Washington, Indiana deserved something better. How did that get organized? And can you take us through, just as kind of a case study, how that town, considered to be small by a lot of people, built a beautiful facility?
Well, first of all, that town was small and is small. I think it may hold the record in the United States as having raised the most money to put a YMCA in a town of 10. Now, Dennis, you're under exaggerating. I think we were maybe closer to 11,000 people if you got way far out.
Counted the cows, maybe.
Or the sheep, whatever. But it attended to 11,000 people is right. And we were the game in town. We were the teen night. We were the dance after the game. We were the Saturday morning basketball. These were before the days that schools opened or that school systems thought that they maybe had a responsibility to the city. These were the days when we were there and there weren't much other folk out there, if to use an old country term. So in 73, a group of young families came to us and said, look, we need an indoor pool. We don't have one. We want more program. We want more activity. We're a fine little American city. And if you would recall, we raised, I think, close to $800,000 in that little town. A great man who's still around, Henry Gwaltney. Henry made a lot of money in the gas business and investments, and Henry had kids, and it kind of takes a few people to light that spark and to carry that torch. And as the Olympics are around, you watch these athletes coming out of big towns and small towns. But in our day, the YMCA was the place to be. And we raised more money in that town to build more YMCA building and facilities than anyone would ever imagine. And it was because, I think, we were there. We were there for the kids. We were there for their parents. And what we built was a beautiful aquatic center addition and I was just back not long ago, we now have the wooden floor on the gym and a wellness center. In that little old town that's probably not quite 10,000 today, although it was more when we were there. So the people wanted it. They got in their pockets. They gave unselfishly charitable gifts that raised probably more money per capita than any town in our part of the country.
One section of the economy I want to pay tribute to here is broadcasting. The free time the local radio station and the stations in the area gave to the Y. I mean, the station to which people are listening right now gives a lot of free public service time to various causes. I narrated a slideshow, which I think was shown to every organization. Every time 2 or 3 people got together, you dragged out the slideshow. But if you will, treat that whole aspect of how important the radio station, the newspaper, you mentioned the newspaper, as to keeping the story out there and enlisting people's help.
Well, I think we've come a long way in communication, and that's your business, and you know better than I that an informed community and an informed populace know what's going on and how to make it happen. Now, we're going back before the days of internet or before the days of we didn't have VCRs or videos. What we had was slides. And Dennis Michael Daly and his narration on the YMCA Action 73 campaign, which told about kids being bussed out of town to go to swimming practice, which told about the influences in their lives that were perhaps not always positive, which told about a small town that didn't have enough things to do with their kids. So the media, and Lord, Dennis, we had a show called YMCA Today or Live at the Y. Every Saturday afternoon, I'd get hit in the head with basketballs trying to do it from the telephone outside the door, so you could. We did it live. I remember the newspaper would run our column of Y News. We could get front page when we were doing something exciting. You kind of went down, you talked to Ron Arvin, the editor of the paper, and you said, Ron, this is good for the city, this is good for our people. And the media was at that point, and I think still is, very interested in what people are doing to better themselves. So God bless what you did for us and what the media did for us and what they still do. In Nashville, we're blessed with a lot of high-powered newspapers, radios. We have our own television network with TNN and some of those places, and they're all so good to us. Now, we want them to come out when we're celebrating the win at the Kids Olympics, just like we want them to come and cover potentially a problem. And I guess if I have any hope and desire is that we celebrate the wins we have, and not just when Johnny got his bike stolen in the front of the building. We need to celebrate the good things, the fact that kids every day come to us and learn and grow and go home and work hard at being good kids, and parents who work hard at being good parents.
I'm going to mention somebody's name here, and this name will not mean anything to anybody listening. But I want to use this fellow as the classic example of someone who gave his heart and soul to the YMCA. When you and I were back there in southern Indiana, there was a fellow named Albert Ice. He was a jovial guy, I guess in his 60s by the time we knew him, spent almost every waking hour down at the Y. He was the father confessor and counselor to hundreds of kids. There are so many unsung heroes like that out there. I don't know whether, was he paid? He was a paid employee. But whether they're paid or volunteer, I don't think society really takes the time to recognize that there are these role models out there, that there are indeed people who we 30 years later remember, and I'm sure the kids of today will have their heroes that they'll talk about.
Well, Dennis, we need heroes. We don't have enough of them. We need role models. We need people to look up to, and Albert Ice was a volunteer for 25 years in that YMCA. We have in Nashville and many YMCAs throughout the country a movement called the Student YMCA. And when you talk about the Student Y, I'm sure people think of fitness centers and basketballs and swimming pools. The Student YMCA in our city and cities throughout this country is a voluntary organization in the colleges. We have Vanderbilt, Trevecca, Belmont, and TSU, Tennessee State, that all have Student Ys, about 1,500 college students who for the last 10 years in Nashville have provided opportunities of volunteering. Now, let's just be real specific. Vanderbilt University is one of the more expensive places to go to school. These kids come from throughout the United States. It's a great school. It's a great university and puts out good academians and good people. But some of the folks who come have never experienced the inner city, have never been into a housing development, have never met a kid who couldn't read, have never had the opportunity of working with kids who are poor. I mean poor. You and I were poor and we didn't know it, but we have kids today who don't know, where the next meal's coming from. So we give these college students a chance to volunteer. We're there at the student fair, the opening fair. We have officers. We are a recognized organization on these campuses. We have full-time staff members who staff the Student Y, and their job in that business is to give collegiate young people a chance to help their city. And let me just be real specific here. We're talking about kind of a self-serving business. We want these kids who will someday be out in the workforce, someday be the CEO of a company, someday be in senior leadership of an institution. We want them to celebrate volunteerism, to celebrate caring for people who don't have it all. We want them and their employees to be generous of their time and their talent. And Lord knows we all need all the treasure we can share. So the Student Y is not one of those organizations that provides fitness. It provides an avenue for people to be fit inside, to fit into this society and to fit into this community. And the stories, Dennis. So we have one quick one. We have a young lady who spent 4 years at Vanderbilt. She coached one of our inner-city soccer teams. She had 3 losing years, and the last year she won the inner-city tournament. But the kids on that team spent the night in her dorm 3 or 4 times a year. They had her phone number at her dorm when they were in trouble. And when you hear the stories of the commitment that these young people make to these kids, it's more than just I'm going to show up and serve you ice cream on the ice cream day. It's caring and loving and sharing.
Clark, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
You see, the YMCA does a lot more than just teach you to swim or let you play basketball. I'm Dennis Daly.